I swear that when I looked through the window, the houses were no longer there. All that remained was forest. Tall trees, wet trunks, the reflection in the glass still showing me the perfect village, as if it existed in another layer of reality. And behind me, someone or something was breathing in the same rhythm as my heart. It's better to start at the beginning. Maybe tearing the truth out of time is the only way to explain how I ended up there. I was driving slowly along a road that, on my map, barely existed. A thin gray line, almost erased. It was late autumn, the sun tilting pale between the trees, and the feeling of trespassing on a forgotten place gave me a calm adrenaline. These trails always called to me, remnants of old maps, points marked by someone who wanted to hide what they found. It was the promise of the unusual that pushed me forward. When the GPS finally lost signal, I felt a cold weight of responsibility. There was no cell service, no signs, no other cars. Just the dirt road and a silence so deliberate it felt like the world had closed its doors around the path. I stopped the car, grabbed my camera and recorder, and began to walk carefully. Every sound I made became a crime being documented. The fallen sign was the first thing I found, half buried in mud, covered in rust. One word still legible: danger. The typography wasn't local. There was something foreign in the way the letters curved. I filmed the sign, whispered the date to mark the recording, and kept going. I don't know if curiosity guided me or if it was something else, something calling me in. The entrance to the village appeared between ferns and moss-covered stones, like a model someone had left there by mistake. The houses lined a narrow cobblestone street, chimneys collapsed, rooftops covered in lichen. The first thing that struck me was that, although the facades were old and cracked, the windows were clean. In some, the curtains looked new, moving even though there was no wind. I entered slowly, camera running against my chest, recording not just images but the air itself. There was a strange smell, a mix of wet wood, old metal, and something like burned iron. My footsteps echoed, and the echo seemed to answer. Sometimes, someone inside would knock on the walls, matching my steps. I told myself it was coincidence and kept exploring. One small house had its door ajar. I pushed it with my palm and the wood groaned, revealing a narrow corridor. At the end, a rhythmic sound, almost metronomic, 3 knocks. I froze every time the sound matched my breathing. I pointed the camera toward the interior and saw something that froze me even more. Marks on the wall, vertical scratches, as if something had tried to claw through the wood from inside, with controlled force, deliberate, repeated. I went back to the main street and found the central square, where a dry fountain stood. In its center, someone had left an object, a small rag doll, dirty, its eyes sewn unevenly. When I approached to film it, the sense of being watched grew stronger. No one in sight, yet the air was full of presence, as if the place remembered the people who had been there and was waiting for them to come back. I turned on the recorder to log everything. When I reviewed the audio later, I heard something I hadn't noticed in the moment. A voice whispering my name. Clear, female, distant, and yet close. The timestamp showed it had happened during the recording, right at a point when I was sure I was alone. My body reacted instantly, warning, danger, run. But I didn't run. I kept walking, and that's when I saw the footprints. Small, light, with no defined heel, barefoot or something unlike any foot I knew. I followed them to the edge of the village, where the ground sloped down toward a still lake. The surface mirrored the houses perfectly, but when I looked beyond the reflection, there were only trees. The reflection showed another street that didn't exist physically, extending deeper into the water. By the shore stood another sign, half buried, with inscriptions I couldn't understand. I touched the engraved letters. felt the texture of the metal beneath my fingers, and a chill ran through me as if the sign remembered something. When I turned back, I caught a glimpse of a tall figure moving past a window in the distance. I ran toward it with the camera shaking, but when I got there, nothing. Only silence and the sound of my heart pounding loud enough to fill the empty air. I decided to head back to the car. The path I had taken, the same I'd trusted, was gone. The trees had closed in on themselves, and the road was now a web of roots and stones. My watch showed 3:14, and no matter how long I stared, the seconds wouldn't move. That's when I realized the village was breathing. The walls expanded and contracted with a slow rhythm, as if the structure itself was alive. If this part feels heavy, there's more. But I'll stop here for a moment because what comes next needs to be told slowly. What I saw through the glass that made me run and never be able to go back. It was the moment I looked again through the window that I realized the reflection was showing me a different village. The houses were all lit, every room glowing, and silhouettes moved behind the curtains. But outside everything remained dark, lifeless, silent. It was as if the image in the glass came from another time, a time when that place still existed. I lowered the camera slowly, trying to confirm with my own eyes, and the reflection didn't vanish. It stayed even when I wasn't facing it anymore. It was as if it had printed itself inside my mind. Suddenly I felt a shift of air behind me. Cold, damp, like a breath. The air seemed to push me inward as if the house wanted to swallow me whole. I took 2 steps back, and then the sound of something scratching wood came from upstairs. I recorded the audio. The noise sounded like nails scraping against a mirror, measured, patient, almost communicative. I thought about running, but the corridor ahead looked different. The walls were narrower than before, as if the house were closing around me. I tried the side window, it wouldn't move. I pushed with my shoulder. The glass vibrated but didn't break. That's when the reflection changed. The face in the window wasn't mine anymore. A man, pale and still, was staring at me from the other side, his outline trembling on the glass like vapor. He didn't blink. His expression was neutral, but I could feel anger radiating from him. I stepped back, tripped, the camera hit the floor, and the sound captured my uneven breathing, metal clanging against wood. I picked it up and ran outside, but the outside had changed too. The sky was a strange color, a sick blue, and the forest seemed denser, closer. The houses appeared to move, barely, but enough to make me doubt my sight, as if the entire village were breathing with me. I ran toward where the car should be, but it wasn't there. The ground was just mud and roots. I shouted, and the echo returned my voice late, as though another version of me were screaming from a delayed moment in time. My watch still said 3:14. The hands were frozen, but the light in the sky shifted. I don't know how, but day and night seemed to trade places. The shadows sliding back and forth like the world had forgotten how to keep time. At some point I heard children running, soft laughter, high-pitched, echoing through the walls of the empty houses. I ran toward one of them, opened the door, and found only the echo of laughter, trapped in the air like a recording left behind. The temperature dropped and the smell of iron grew stronger. I touched a wall and felt a faint vibration, like the pulse of a giant heart hidden beneath the wood. I don't know how long I stayed there. I only know that at some point I saw the reflection of the village again in the lake, and it still showed the houses. But this time, it also showed me standing at the edge, looking down. And in the reflection, a figure behind me, still with its hand resting on my shoulder. I turned fast and there was nothing. Just the sound of wind, or maybe something pretending to be the wind. I started walking back, or at least what I thought was back. The forest seemed to rearrange itself, every tree changing place when I looked away. The road no longer existed. That's when I understood what the map was trying to hide. That place wasn't lost, it was trapped. And somehow by entering, I had set it free. With each step, the feeling of being followed grew stronger. Sometimes I heard my own footsteps repeating a second later. Sometimes they came before me. Now I write what's left of this story, not knowing if it's today or yesterday because my watch still shows the same time. 3:14. Always. I look around and don't see the houses anymore, but I hear doors opening in the distance one by one. The sound of breathing behind me has returned. I think maybe I never left. Maybe the village kept me inside some reflection, repeating the story endlessly, waiting for the next one brave enough to find it. If this story is touching you, comment below where you're watching from and what time it is there.